and I want you to know that I do not believe that anybody should be have a monopoly on noise and interruption. You would start it in Mr. Mwanda with me. This show will not happen.
You want interruptions? He represents who and whose views?
You want to have this show degenerate into a shouting match?
No.
Mwanda, you will not speak.
Because
I will speak over your voice.
When you handle diplomacy, you represent who? You represent who? And can you account for your funding? How do we hold you accountable?
Are you supposed to
How do we hold you accountable? And whose views do you represent in your diplomacy?
You want this to degenerate into a quarrel?
These are concerning issues.
That's what you're going to achieve.
Account for your funding. Who funds you?
Why is that your issue? I find myself.
It is impossible.
You
do public work.
You who account for your funding.
To do public work. And who do you report to? When you disregard former channels, you disregard former channels. You purport to be the Minister of Foreign Affairs. You purport to be the ambassador. We can't know who funds you. Now you represent the money. This is concerning.
The EU themselves have said you steal money. You noob, you have stolen money. How can you claim to be fighting?
From where and from who?
The EU gives you money and you have stolen that money.
That is your public rhetoric and negative rhetoric.
It is the EU. So you as a noob, have you accounted the money government gives you? I have been involved, for example, in a relationship between Uganda and Rwanda. Because I have a good relationship with Kagame, I have a good relationship with President Museveni, and I can carry messages in between. So sometimes state institutions are paralyzed or not the best suited positions to work. But always these formal institutions, rather informal institutions, must reinforce formal institutions. So formal institutions don't work in a vacuum. When you come to power, you will find hold a second. I do not disturb your presentation, even when you accuse me of
just information. I think it is intentional for the likes of Mwenda and his accomplices to dismantle democratic institutions and constitutional establishments, including ministries. Now you are seeing him confessing live that he has been engaged in diplomacy. And for us who are keeping government in check, we have a mission.
How do you keep Andrew in check?
we have a mission, an embassy in Rwanda with a diplomat and the staff. In fact, he's even a general.
Can I finish?
Now, it is facilitated and funded with a vote on taxpayers' money to execute diplomatic work and diplomacy. Now, when I hear that, it is now Mwenda doing their work, when we are also paying diplomats there, that's dismantling democratic and governance institutions. We cannot abet it. We cannot abet it.
Honorable, allow him his time.
Yes. So first of all, you can clearly see he has not listened to me. I have explained to him, both theoretically and empirically, that formal institutions cannot work alone. They need informal ties. I can tell you. And I have given examples of so many governments in the developed world. So is this man, Vernon Jordan, who was Clinton's handler, who was not in the government, was he undermining America's democracy? This father-in-law of Trump's whatever, who is handling these peace negotiations, is he undermining American democracy? This guy, Alistair Campbell, who was helping out of government but working with Tony Blair to promote, no country can work without those informal connections. That's so important. And I have told you that informal networks can reinforce formal institutions. Left alone, formal institutions cannot succeed. And I have seen many international negotiations where somebody from outside the system helped. I'll give you another example. How
Andrew,
I think hold a second, my grand. Please, hold a second.
The question is,
how do we hold
the blood between the formal and the informal?
How do we hold Andrew? No.
Let me give you an
information,
example.
Andrew.
Please,
how do we hold him accountable?
Yes.
We want to know what funds, what is his source of funding?
Okay.
How does he access that funding to do whatever he does? Two, how do we hold him accountable?
So when
and if it is
for
influence values, he represents who and whose views?
You want to have this show degenerate into a shouting match?
No.
Mwanda, you will not speak.
Because
I will speak over your voice.
When you handle diplomacy, you represent who? You represent who? Can you account for your funding? How do we hold you accountable?
Are you supposed to speak
How do we hold you accountable? And whose views do you represent in your diplomacy?
You want this to degenerate into a quarrel?
These are concerning issues.
That's what you're going to achieve.
Account for your funding. Who funds you?
Why is that your issue? I find myself.
It is impossible.
You
to do public work.
You who account for your funding.
To do public work. And who do you report to? When you disregard formal channels, you disregard formal channels. You purport to be the Minister of Foreign Affairs. You purport to be the ambassador. We can't know who funds you. Now you represent for the money. This is concerning.
The EU themselves have said you steal money. You noob, you have stolen money. How can you claim to be fighting?
From where and from who?
The EU gives you money and you have stolen that money.
That is your public rhetoric and negative rhetoric.
It is the EU. So you as a noob, have you accounted the money government gives you? You are here saying that you are an opposition person.
Why do you like NUP
you denounce the government. Don't you earn a salary of 40 million? Don't you earn a salary of 40 million from government? The poor people who vote for you
we want to know
and 1,000
who funds you, Mwenda, to do public work.
Yes, we also
and
want
who
to
do you
know.
account to?
I want to know why you sit in
you are
the
not an ambassador.
of a government.
You are not a minister. You are not an office of government.
40 million shillings a month.
Who funds you? Who do you report to?
Times more than every ordinary Ugandan. Please tell me.
Guys,
you sit in the government. You say this government is dictatorship.
But that's constitutional.
Those
are elective officials.
Exactly. It is constitutional. But is it right?
Those are elective officials.
Is it moral right for you as a member of parliament to earn 40 million shillings?
No. Okay. We apologize for whatever happened. Andrew, we are back.
That gives you 1.3 million shillings every single day.
Andrew.
You think that's fair because in the Constitution?
Honorable.
The Constitution allows you to scavenge in this country.
No
Cheat
comment.
the people of this country. We should allow
you.
it.
Will comment.
Who do you account to yourself? Do you account to your voters?
Because
Andrew,
do you account to your voters
who are not an ambassador? You are not a minister. We want to see how do we hold you accountable?
Do you account to the people of Uganda for you earning 40 million shillings a month?
Guys,
do you account to
as
them?
the agent of Uganda and foreign relations?
I'm asking you, for a man like you, claiming to represent people, you represent people who live on less than $1 a day.
Unless you can account for us.
1.3 million shillings a day. How can you do that? You have the conscience.
You can utter books.
And you come here and criticize you come here to criticize Museveni, from whose palm you are feeding.
Yeah, you also control him.
Okay, then
why do you want to control me?
He's the one who started this system. If you want to make this a personal debate, I'm asking him. Yes.
Leave him.
I think let's carry on.
Let's come back to the debate, because the question that I posed to you. You talked about informal institutions and formal institutions.
Yes.
And both of them have to find.
And I'm not responsible for his lack of intellectual quality of any type. That's his weakness.
Leave him. I'm with you. How do we account for the blah-in bit there? Because you have given examples, and these are democracies that have been around for over 200 years. Ours is a young democracy. How do we help the institutions grow and kill the blah-in between the formal and the informal?
First of all, let me explain to you. Formal institutions cannot work as he thinks. He has no knowledge, any intellectual knowledge of how formal institutions work. He has never studied institutions and institutional growth in his life. You can clearly see he's an ignorant man. Okay. That is one.
Let's focus on the
Two, I have explained to you, wherever country it is, you will need informal institutions to support formal institutions. Because he scavenges on the state, he thinks those of us who serve our countries need money from the state. I don't need. Government of Uganda has never bought me a ticket. He feeds off the government of Uganda. I don't feed off the government of Uganda. He can go and check my bank account where the government of Uganda has never paid me anything. Never. And listen, I don't need to be paid for me to serve my country. When I went to work as a journalist at the Monitor, I went there because it was a calling for me. It was not a job, it was not a career. Monitor did not need to pay me for me to report news, to do analysis. I come on this show all the time.
Yes.
I don't get paid. I come here because it fulfills me. I have an interest in promoting democratic debate, expanding the frontiers of freedom in whatever form. He is involved in it for money. Let him be a volunteer in the parliament, then you can see. He goes to parliament, they pay him 40 million shillings, voters who voted for him, and less than $1 a day. And he says that's a fair thing because it's the Constitution. So because the Constitution passed the law to feed you and then fatten you and enrich you at the expense of voters, then it is right.
Thank you, Andrew.
So that is the issue we have. The final thing I have explained to you, this thing about Saleh. Saleh is an official of the government of Uganda, appointed as a senior presidential advisor, but he also has influence. If I'm an ambassador, for example, Nicholas here, are you employed by the government of Uganda?
No.
Don't the diplomats talk to you about Uganda?
Every day.
So what is this man talking about? If you are a diplomat, you must meet people who have influence, who have voice, and share ideas with them. If you want to exercise influence, that's how you do it. If people don't come to you, it's not my problem that you lack influence. Perhaps because your intelligence is so low, nobody's going to listen to you. So the final thing I wanted to say before he disrupted me, and I want you to know that I do not believe that anybody should be have a monopoly on noise and interruption. You would start it in Mr. Mawodo with me. This show will not happen. The final thing I just wanted to say is, the one thing that Ugandans should know is that all of us don't need to be employed by government like he is to do work. I believe I can serve this country and I will continue to serve it in every single capacity without a government job. I don't need a government job. I don't need the government pay. You can ask Museveni, he appears before you in parliament, doesn't he? Or you can go to sit and ask him. Mwenda was flying all the time to Kigali. Have you ever given him 1 shilling? If he tells you yes, ask him where that budget is and how much money he gave me.
Okay.
So I'm not you. I don't scavenge on the state.
Honorable Mwenda, when you see this letter from the UPDF, and you have mentioned about the meeting in Gulu, but a lot of work is being done by the EU to develop our country. How far should this greeting go? It seems like it's going to the elbow instead of a handshake.
Well, as long as the 1995 Constitution of Uganda, as amended, still stands, where by Constitution all power must belong to the people, and execution of public roles and work must be in the best interest of the people. I will insist that diplomacy is a formal process. The conduct and actions of the UPDF, releasing a statement naming an ambassador and a country called German, I find it as an attempt to bully, character assassinate, and intentionally disregard established diplomatic avenues. There is no proof that they have exhausted diplomatic avenues, if avenues, and without prejudice to whatever information that may be within the knowledge of the UPDF. I still find the timing and the conduct, equally the mode of communicating any such concerns as intentional, because the bilateral relations between Uganda and Germany have existed from way back. I've been trying to cross-check since 1964. 1964, just 2 years after Uganda's independence. And it involves relations in various sectors. They have supported Uganda in agriculture and rural development, renewable energy, refugee hosting communities, good governance, human rights, public finance management, job creation, among others. And you cannot tell me that we are waking up today to say that now the German ambassador or German is not welcome or is bad merely because they questioned why Uganda and some agencies of government in this country are disregarding values of fundamental rights and freedoms, including aspects of torture. A country that supports Uganda in the development cooperation, and the development is in the interest that Ugandans live and live longer in a healthy environment. Now, you cannot say that they have no authority or moral ground to question why there is intimidation, why there is torture, why there is abduction. This is a very interesting development. And equally, when it comes to the nature, I mentioned that kind of meeting must have been a setup to parade media and ensure that there is presence of mercenaries like my senior Mwenda. By the way, I would respect him in other spheres. But when it comes to formal service delivery and representing government, I mentioned in the beginning that ours is to keep government in check. We cannot assume who to hold accountable. We want to see the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, our embassies, our government institutions, which are well established and which are well known, which we can hold accountable, represent and handle matters of governance and diplomacy. There we have no, we have no exemption. So whether he has acted in good faith whatsoever, we find it irregular. That matters of governance and diplomacy, we find it irregular. Matters of governance and diplomacy must be executed in accordance with the law. When you say you are appointed, but whatsoever, even appointment and delegation must be in line with governance and the law. We have three ministers. We have three ministers of foreign affairs. Three ministers. How do you disregard the three ministers? You jump to Andrew Mwenda. And when and how can we hold Mwenda accountable on TV, in the media? Now, back to what he mentioned. He also quoted NUP.
Hold on.
I wanted to respond to that also.
Is it the process or the product? Because the thing is, the challenge.
Can I tell that's why these people are not running a government?
Hold on. Because the challenge we have,
the degree of your
in the governance,
Andrew,
where will I find Mwenda to account for whatever he has executed and under which mandate? Government cannot be at leisure.
Let's put the mandate aside. Let's ask the question, because the challenge right now is that there are accusations. There is intelligence that has come out that is making accusations. There is torture, yes. They're fundamentals. Is it the process you're looking for, or the product at the end of it?
What product are you talking about? If I told you without, first of all, I said without prejudice, if the UPDF or any government agency has any concern towards any diplomat, they are well-established avenues. And those are very clear, especially through Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Those avenues are very clear. They can explore those avenues. But coming in the media to character assassinate an ambassador, a diplomat, is an attack on the diplomatic space in this country. There are other formal processes they can explore. Now, when it comes, why are you quoting distant examples? Let's exhaust Uganda now. Let's exhaust Uganda now.
Yeah, but
why do you fear facts? Why do you fear facts?
I'm asking him.
Because
this ignorant
because it is you who is ignorant in matters of diplomacy. I'm trying to lecture you on diplomacy. You are only being assertive on what you do. I'm telling you what you are doing is wrong, is illegal. How do we be accountable? This is diplomacy. This is not. We are not discussing at leisure. This is diplomacy. We must hold institutions accountable.
Who told that diplomacy is made by one person? I'm asking you.
Where shall we find you to hold the accountable?
Okay, now let's. Welcome back from that quick commercial break here on Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. In the studio, I'm joined by Professor Sarah Sali, Counsel Nicholas Opio, the old man of the clan, Andrew Mwenda, Hon.Muwanda Nkunyingi, representing the people of Chadondo East, Ambassador Simon Mulongo, and we're discussing especially the issues that transpired in Gulu between the EU and the team that was with General Saleh, discussing patent issues that were there. We're also looking at the letter that came from the UPDF the day after, especially making very strong allegations that came there. But let me read two messages, then jump into Andrew explaining to us the deep state there. My name is Wilson from Muyenga. The old man of the clan is very right. Sovereign countries like Uganda should be free to handle their affairs without interference by Western powers, but as long as the Western world finances a greater part of your budget, then they must control you. So stop dependence on the donations and tell them hands off on our affairs there. Okay, thank you, Wilson. Moses, who is a student at Mbale Secondary School, appreciates the show and is watching and learning a lot there. Okay, keep the messages coming. We'll read them in a bit, but let me read the statement, then come to Andrew. I'll read a bit of it. This was signed off by the spokesperson who was with us last week, Colonel Chris Magezi, and this is the part that caught me. We are particularly concerned about the illegal and clandestine activities of the German ambassador in Uganda, His Excellency Matthias. The intelligence services are aware about his clearly undiplomatic practices that have been taking place in different parts of the country sometime now, and which has gone against the spirit of the Vienna Diplomatic Convention that regulate cordial relationships between states. The government of Uganda is following up this matter with the concerned foreign mission through the various diplomatic channels to address and be able to sort out this development. Andrew, the first question is, I know you want to comment on some things, but the first question is, how did that meeting end and did it bear any fruit? Secondly, what do you make of this statement from the UPDF? Why was it the UPDF that was responding and not the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or yourself? And
handled through diplomatic channels. It is said there, which is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in that letter. But the UPDF as an institution responsible for security, and if it says the ambassador is involved in subversive activities, the security can also comment on it. So that is not unusual. Now, but let me come to the issues of international relations. Let me begin with Nicholas' statement on the responsibility to protect. But the preamble is this. Uganda has many problems. Maybe you have torture, we have corruption, we have so many things. I believe those are our problems. We should address them as Ugandans, and we should refuse foreigners to insert themselves in our affairs. That is my principle. And to you, Nicholas, if you read anything I have written, I oppose all forms of aid, whether it is humanitarian, whether it's technical, whether it's financial. You can read over the last 20 years, I have written so much about aid. I believe financial aid, for example, so what I'm saying that even interference in human rights undermines our democratic process, because it hijacks the political struggle from the domestic to the international. I will give you an example, and these people of NUP are interested in power, not in democracy, I can tell you. That's why they would invite these Muzungu to get involved. You see, if you are given financial aid, so the government of Uganda depends on World Bank, IMF, and other donors for money, then it has no interest in engaging me and you to build political institutions and public policies that can increase our productivity so that it can collect more tax revenues from us. It loses interest in us because the productive margin in its search for revenue does not lie in our farms, in our factories, in our gardens, our ranches. It lies in begging international donors. If very powerful rich countries come and say they are the ones supporting him, you see, democracy grows through fits and starts through over a very long period of time, and it's a journey, not a destination. I could give the history of the US. They declare the Declaration of Independence 1772. Their constitution, which says all men are born equal, is 1789. But in 1789, only rich white men could vote. Poor white men could not vote. Black people were slaves. Native Americans could not vote. Women could not vote. You see, but through struggle, in 1830, they accepted adult male white suffrage. 1865, they abolished slavery. 1868, this is 190 years later, is when America passes a law saying nobody will be stopped from voting on the basis of their former condition of servitude or their race. But black people never got a right to vote until 1965, 150 years later. You see, so the struggle for Uganda's democracy is a struggle we should be involved in. We will not achieve what we want in our lifetime, but we recognize that we are always part and parcel of the struggle to expand democratic rights. Now, how does foreign interference undermine this struggle? And this is not to criticize the opposition in Uganda, it's just to criticize the structural, it raises a structural point. Because if I am Kyagulanyi, I am Mawodo here, there is a powerful country supporting me, it may, recognizing that I'm backed by the Americans and the Europeans, it may reduce my incentive to engage in negotiations and compromise with Museveni in order to achieve, maybe I may not achieve 100% of what I want, I may achieve 10%, but 10% is a good progress for us. The Americans up to now are still involved in the democratic struggle. They have not arrived there. So, backed by powerful, the Batoro call it kuterektigi. I don't know how I can translate it in English. Is to give somebody such confidence that you take away their incentive to compromise. But democracy is built on compromise. Let's come to humanitarian aid. Let's come to practical everything. Whenever foreigners insert themselves in our issues, they may be even well-intentioned, but they change the structure of incentives. Because if you know that whenever there is a famine, somebody will come and give you food, then the government's incentive to build institutions and policies to guard against famine are reduced. Because you know something will come from outside. So, avoid foreign interference in our affairs. Even Uganda's involvement in Somalia, DRC, and Sudan. Read my ratings. I've said let those Congolese fight until someone wins. Let the South Sudanese win. Uganda can never fix Congo, I can tell you, even if we stay there for 100 years. If we left Somalia today, Al-Shabaab will take over. And I've written articles suggesting that Uganda is stopping the internal process of Somalia from maturing. And that's why we are stuck there. Whatever Museveni benefits from it, whatever delusions possess his mind, we can never fix Somalia. Only Somalis can fix Somalia. Now, let me come to the points of international law. Responsibility to protect. Nicholas. Who assigns this responsibility to who? Can Uganda undertake the responsibility to protect? Because as I said earlier, they went to Libya to protect against Gaddafi. But right now, people are being killed. Why are they not protecting? Why are not exercising it in Israel? They say this whataboutism, but it tells you something. Why is there this selective application of international rules? If Uganda from international law, which says respect sovereign equality and respect don't interfere in internal affairs, you say no. For us, we have a rules-based international order. Who has set these rules? We can interfere to promote democracy and human rights. Who defines what a country is a democracy? I don't think the United States is a democracy. It's ruled by a few corporate barons. And ordinary Americans are not saying that government. Should Uganda interfere? So these are tricks used by the powerful to disorganize the weak. And Africans should see that. But Africans are so internally divided. That is why IMF can come here and dictate policies. Our story is told by the CNN and the BBC and New York Times. Our hungry are fed by the World Food Program. Our poor are saved by Bono and Angelina Jolie. Tell me one aspect of our life that is not being shaped from outside. If you read the Muzungu literature at colonialism, they are saying we are children, and like all children, we should be governed permanently. So why don't we as Ugandans, I'm challenging you people, why don't you feel that without these Americans, we can fight torture? We may not win today, but we can improve the situation of governance in our country. Why can't we fight for our democratic rights? Why do we, who helped the Americans or the British or the French? Who did it? Why do we expect others to come and help us? In any case, isn't it obvious that others would have interests, and the interests may be different from ours? Why do we allow outsiders to insert themselves in our politics? Now let me come to the issue of General Saleh. General Saleh is, you are saying is not a government official, is actually a senior presidential advisor. He is also the coordinator of Operation World School. Those are government positions. He's also a member of the Army High Command, and he's a permanent member. But even informally, he's a brother of the president. He's a hero of the NRM struggle. All these aspects give him incredible influence, access and influence. He can call his brother anytime and he has influence. Let me tell you, there is no system in the world, Maodo, which works purely on formal institutions. All states have formal structures, but these formal structures are embedded in informal networks and ties. It is the informal networks and ties that allow formal structures to work. I'll give you an example. The world almost came to an end during the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. At the height of the crisis, President Kennedy could not get many issues through the Army and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He sent his brother, Robert, to meet a man called Anatoly Dublin, who was the Soviet ambassador. They sent him at night. He went and negotiated an agreement between Kennedy and Khrushchev, his brother, outside of the structures of government, and he even went in a taxi in order to disguise it. Even in Britain, you can see there was a man called Alisa Cab whom Tony Blair fired. There is a book written by the chief of staff of Tony Blair. The guy is called Jonathan Powell. He wrote a book called The New Machiavelli. You can see even these advanced countries that have had institutions for 500 years still have informal channels through which you can conduct diplomacy. Right now, there is a man who is conducting Trump's diplomacy actually. He has been to DRC. He is always in Russia. I see him in Turkey and Saudi Arabia. What is the guy called? He's not a former employee of government. He's a friend of Trump. Clinton had a black man.
He's a father-in-law to one of his daughters.
Yeah, he's father-in-law to one of his daughters, yes. Clinton had a friend, what was that man, black man called? Who always handled his diplomacy. He was not in the government. Vernon Jordan, Vernon something. Jordan Vernon something. So the use of informal channels to achieve formal objectives is a common practice in diplomacy.
Deep state is not our word. It's their word.
It is their word.
Yeah.
I have been involved, for example, in a relationship between Uganda and Rwanda. Because I have a good relationship with Kagame, I have a good relationship with President Museveni, and I can carry messages in between. So sometimes state institutions are paralyzed or not the best suited positions to work. But always these formal institutions, rather informal institutions, must reinforce formal institutions.